Hello and welcome. This is the third episode of the Dialog podcast. I'm your host, Liz Nix, and today I am very privileged to have my guest, Brian Purkiss. Brian has been building and optimizing websites for the majority of the past 20 years, and currently he's most focused on e-commerce. Brian, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, happy to be here. It's been a while. Happy to chat tech.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to have you here, and it's been a bit. So I think you may or may not have given me the full story in an interview once upon a time, but if you don't mind, can you tell us how you got into tech?
Well, go back far enough before my career even started. I was wanting to customize my MySpace profile. That's kind of what kicked it all off, is wanting to mess around with those graphics, customize my top 8, make everything all look different. So I started messing around with HTML and CSS and learning how to do all of that stuff. At this point, when I tell that origin, some of the younger people that I talk to don't even understand what I'm talking about. How things have changed. So yeah, that got started messing around with that one, and then I enjoyed it. It's, definitely kind of have that kind of engineering mindset, but I still very much like the interactivity and the visuals, and I'm really passionate about the whole customer experience. And of course, in this case, it was just, my MySpace profile experience. But I just kept digging and started up, some free hosting, messing around with just some building out just HTML, CSS, and then started getting into JavaScript and interactivity. Worked my way on up to WordPress, just building some websites for myself. And then that kind of kicked off my career. I remember I did go to college, and I did drop out, but as I was in college trying to learn how to build websites, I was going to college on Tuesdays and Thursdays for 12 hours a day, and then working an 8-hour day Monday, Wednesday, Friday at an actual web agency. And I was in web, was that 101 or 102? I was in my web class, and some of the advice of the professor I did not necessarily agree with. This particular professor had the mindset that all you needed to do was know how to build websites using the Dreamweaver WYSIWYG interface and hitting publish, and you could have a successful career building websites doing that. CMSs were a thing. Like this wasn't like that far back in the age.
It wasn't like when I learned it.
WordPress was growing and established, and other CMSs and Joomla and all of this stuff. So content management, theme engines, and all of that type of stuff was an actual thing. I was doing that Monday, Wednesday, Friday as my day job, building out websites, and I got into a few little discussions with my professor, just being like, but what about this? Like, what about working with themes, and you have to learn some PHP in order to build out a custom theme for a WordPress site, so clients can manage content easily. No, I have students, and this is their freelance career, and they're making money, and this is good. And then I go to my boss, who owns the agency, and I'm like, so this is what my professor's saying, and this is what I'm saying. And he's like, yeah, if I had somebody interviewing for me, and they were saying that stuff, they wouldn't get the job here at this particular agency. So I was looking at the curriculum for next year, and Flash 101 was one of the classes for the next semester. The iPhone was in full swing. The iPhone never supported Flash. iOS never supported Flash. And not only were we in the full transition to the responsive mobile and all of that type of stuff, Adobe themselves at this point in time had said, whatever that date was, however many years out, like Flash is being deprecated. We're no longer updating it. We're only doing security updates, and it'll be fully deprecated on this date. Stop using it. And so I'm going to my professor. I'm like, Adobe themselves, the people who own Flash, are saying to stop using it. So why is this on the curriculum for next year? Oh, it's important for, you're still going to use it. And it's, it's important for learning the foundations of the. I dropped out. And I've been building websites professionally ever since, and my career has been trucking along.
Where did you go to school?
So let's see. I started out at Abilene Christian University, and then switched over to Austin Community College to try for a more targeted associates.
Was it at Austin Community College where
Austin,
you had that experience?
San Antonio Community College, but yes, yeah. That was
Oh, okay. Right. Well, let's be clear to differentiate them. It was San Antonio Community College.
Correct.
You can teach that class now. You know that?
Well, my Web 101 class, I was attending classes with 15-minute breaks between classes for 12 hours a day, Tuesday, Thursday, and then attending a regular job Monday, Wednesday, Friday, while dealing with insomnia. So for my Web 101 class, I literally just put my head down on my desk and slept like an absolute jerk. But I wasn't learning anything, and I tracked it. I literally put in 8 hours of homework effort on my projects for the entire semester, and I got a 98 on the class. So, yeah.
We call that aptitude for sure. Either that or the class is too, like, on the one hand, maybe the class is too easy, but how many people did as well?
Yeah, gosh. There were some people who struggled, but there were also the people who weren't trying, and they weren't making any effort to learn code. They were just using the WYSIWYG editor, thinking that was good enough to help them build a career building websites. I don't know.
It'd be interesting to catch up with some of those people now and see how they're doing.
I didn't network or connect with any of them. Yeah, at that point, and I definitely had some communication and collaboration issues when I was younger. A big chip on my shoulder that held me back in my career at a few points. And I had to work on communicating and building up all the networking and all of that type of stuff for professional growth. Just one, for building a network of professionals that you can learn from and collaborate with. But then also working with your actual direct coworkers in a smooth and efficient manner.
Well, that's a great segue into how you went from that. I mean, no disrespect, but let's just say kid who was working as a web developer and dropping out of college because he realized he knew more than his professors, which is totally fair. But so you were already a web professional at that time. Mm-hmm. How did you go from that to a leader, mm-hmm. which is what you are in this space?
Oh, that is okay. So just, we'll keep going chronologically to keep things simple. I was working with that agency Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Dropped out of college. I had a buddy who was at a similar state. We were young, 20. Had I hit 20? When did I start this? I think I was probably 20, maybe 21 at this point. Yeah, that sounds right. He was doing freelance work, and he had his own little kind of gig building websites. And he's like, I need help. We need to get this. I need it growing. I've got more work than I can handle. So it's like, oh, cool. Quit my job and hopped over with him to run my own little agency. I like to call it one of the biggest, stupidest decisions I've ever made in my life. But it was also one of my a big career launching opportunity for me, despite how stupid it was. Yeah, yeah. So I just jumped in, and at this point I thought I knew a lot more than I did, and I thought he knew, like we had very idealistic ways of how we're supposed to do everything, and we're the professionals who should be building the websites and driving everything. Really kind of taking that sledgehammer approach of I know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to bulldoze everything and do how we think it's going to be. In an agency world, trying to work with clients and convince them that we want to work together and build them their website. It was definitely a roller coaster of a period of time. We managed to get a few recurring clients that were kind of the backbone of what we were doing, and some intermittent stuff. And eventually he split off, my partner split off and did his own stuff, and I continued on for a little bit longer. Took on even had some side gig non-agency work to get things going, to keep paying bills. Needed some help with my dad. Like I said, one of the stupidest things I'd ever done. I could code and build a website, I could design a website, but it was a lot of the other things that I didn't know and I didn't understand, kind of getting into that communication and collaboration. I wasn't able to build partnerships with the clients and convince them that we're working together. Like I said, I had that big chip on my shoulder, young 20-year-old thinking he's knowing everything. Very, very big Dunning-Kruger effect going on. Eventually got to the point of just being like, I can't do this whole solo thing. So I hopped back into the agency life, working with another company in San Antonio at the time, and small little agency. I'd mostly I was pretty much the solo web guy. We'd have a graphics person, sales and support, and project manager, pretty much just a whole bunch of departments of one. And so I was able to kind of stay in my world, build stuff out. But it was a small company in San Antonio, which led me to pursuing a job in Austin. This was a much bigger agency, and this is where a lot of my communication stuff kind of butted up again, because there was an actual team of specialists in different disciplines. There was a whole sales team. There's a team of front-end developers, a team of back-end developers, and project managers. And we had our own custom e-commerce platform that I was able to contribute, kind of my first foray to working directly into a SaaS, contributing to the software itself. I didn't have that much of a client facing, I was on some client calls from time to time, but it was mostly, working with just us. And there were a few relationships at this agency that were, I did not do a good job collaborating with them. There were some people that we were very like-minded. We worked well together, and we were just on the same page. And then other people who had different opinions and different mindsets, because shocking, people are different. This was still something I was learning at the time, and not everyone approaches everything the same way and has the same approaches and all of this stuff. So it was just leading into butting of heads, and eventually, I was kind of pushed out for that. They switched me over to part-time and kind of transitioned me out because there were a few key people that I wasn't able to collaborate well with. That was kind of the start of like, I need to get better at communicating and collaborating with people. So I was making some efforts, but it was still too late to save that job. Hopped over to another agency. Similar things happened where there were some people that I got along real well with, but some people that I didn't. Almost lost my job a few times because I handled a few situations poorly. But I managed to just barely convince them to keep me around for a little bit longer. And this was, it still wasn't quite clicking, man. That didn't now as I'm telling this, I've told my professional story many times over and have a very, very streamlined, rehearsed sales pitch for myself for the whole interview process, which I would have been done by now. But as I'm walking through this journey, like, this was a longer journey than I realized. And now that I'm actually laying it out like this, like I kept on butting my head up against the wall, making the same mistake over and over and over again before, at the eventually that agency, I was getting tired of agency life in particular. And this is where I hopped on over to AMMD and joined up, with Liz. That Liz was working at AMMD and helped interviewed me to hire me to, be her boss.
Yes, for the position they would not promote me to.
Yes.
I was like, all right, what do you got?
Yeah, so at this point, I had made some progress on communication and collaboration, and I was better, but I still would butt some heads. And thankfully, at this point, Justin was around and James was around, and so some of the people that I was working with, we're on the same page. We were working together. You and I, Liz, we worked well together. So I had enough of a little bit of a bubble that we worked well together, and I didn't have to learn through some of these difficulties. But in working with our CEO, she had a very different mindset at handling a whole bunch of different things and different communication styles, and there was some friction but it was a little inconsistent. Sometimes I was able to interact with her, and we got to the point, we figured out a plan, we had to, defined a project, and off we go, and it was good. And then other times there was just this friction, we weren't able to quite get going. And at this point, it was like, I'm making progress, but I'm not making enough progress. And I started getting serious, and reading had come back into my life. And so I was reading some different books as I look around. Here we go. Whole stack of books. And, I was reading Peak Performance. Highly recommend this book. So this was, from remembering the chronological order, this one was, actually, I got this, January 27, 2020. This was given to me by one of my AMMD coworkers. Nice little message there. So this was like, okay, so you actually have to put forth effort to grow and improve. And Peak Performance is about how you can grow and get better and improve at certain things. And that was kind of getting me, it's like, slap in the face, like, so putting forth concerted effort and growing and improving. And now I've got the classic how to win friends and influence people. Some people say it's cliche and that advice is so obvious. And like, okay, if we want to take some of the advice and boil down to its simplest, it's talk to people and learn about them and get everybody on the same page and be nice to people. Like, okay, at its core, the philosophies of what they're teaching is obvious. And if you have a conversation with anyone, like, oh yeah, we all agree with this, but we don't actually go out and always live it. And it's full of different techniques and strategies on how you can actually follow through on these common threads of common courtesy and whatnot that everyone agrees on, but doesn't necessarily live out. So this was part of my journey as I was growing and learning how to better collaborate with people. Extreme Ownership, another classic, good stuff, and on how to grow and get better and be a leader. And so I was learning how to communicate with people. How do I interact with people who are different than me? They have different opinions, but we're all at the same company, which means we all have effectively the same goals. We want the company to grow. We want our careers to grow. We want the team to grow. We want all of these things. I've got the main KPIs, and since we're working on websites, we've got our AOV, we've got our conversion rate, we've got these different hard numbers that we want to improve. We might disagree with which ones we need to focus on the most, but we all agree that these are all important. Where we disagree is the path to get there. And we all need to get on the same page of how me as an individual, us as an individual team, and then other teams, and then the company as a whole, how we are all defining our different areas of responsibility and where we are moving. So we're all trying to move in the same direction. We have to get on that same page. This is especially important in tech. Well, in this case, it was e-commerce, where the vast majority of revenue was direct to consumer through our website. So not only are Liz and I, and as the team grew, our other coworkers, not only do we have our areas of responsibility with our KPIs and our goals, but Greg in his copywriting efforts and sales page efforts, and Brian with his graphic design and new products, and Linda up in customer success, trying to work with different, the customers and make, all of these different people, they all have their own goals. They're all touching on the website. They're all in one way or another they need things done so they can do their job better. If I can help them do their job better, my KPIs are going to be better. Their KPIs are going to be better. The whole company is going to be moving in the same direction. So this was a very much trial by fire, as I was learning how to juggle all of these priorities, learn all of these different priorities, quantify them, organize them, get it all sorted out, get everyone aligned with what I am doing to help them do their jobs, what they're doing to help, for their own jobs, and then their jobs doing, like, all of these things. It's all supporting, it's not siloed, and everyone's working together, and we have to understand it all. And the majority of our coworkers were not developers, so now we're having to teach, at least get them to understand technical concepts enough that they can be like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I understand why we're doing that path. I can't go write the code, but I understand the strategy. Part of it was luck, part of it was some of my learning, part of it was my amazing coworkers, all of these different things as we got together, and I was able to learn how we can get everyone on the same page working towards these same goals. Those soft skills, those communication and collaborations, which were at one point in my career my weak point, then by the end of my time there at AMD, turned into one of my greatest strengths, and we were able to do absolutely amazing stuff, to the point where our crowning achievement of that top 1% for conversion rate metric from Shopify, I still remember that day. I remember that day so clearly, when we got that email and we were looking at that report. We'd had the one the previous year, so we knew it was coming. We were waiting for it. We were excited and like, oh, we got it. We're all checking. Is it broken? Where's the line on the graph? And I'm looking at, there's a line on the far right end, and like, is it glitched, or does that mean we're at the top? And we're emailing the rep, and we're all waiting, trying to pretend to look like we're being busy while we're waiting our rep to hear back. And then we got they confirmed. That means we're at the top 1%. Yeah, that was definitely not the most productive day, but it was one of the greatest, most amazing days. That was fun. So yeah, communication and collaboration, man, it's so important, particularly if you're trying to climb the rat race ladder and all that stuff, to get into leadership and have some level of responsibility, even if you're not doing a people management and you have a product management, or even if you don't have a full-on leadership title, you still have a level of leadership and ownership over your work. And so the ability to communicate and collaborate with people lateral, up, down, wherever they are in the org chart tree, so you can get everyone to understand what you are doing, how you are helping them, how they can help you. You got to get that alignment and moving in the same direction. And that's important. I thought I was doing that, but I was, like I said earlier, I had that sledgehammer approach of just very much, oh, I say it how it is. Like, everyone who's, like, oh, I say it how it is, they're all proud of that. I was too, but everybody else just knows they're being jerks. You can say it how it is and be blunt and straight to the point, but still have a level of tact. You got to learn that level of tact in order to build bridges rather than destroy them. You can't, it's a team effort. You can't do it alone. You have to work together to get the entire company moving in the right direction. And so you have to build those bridges. Otherwise, you're just a whole bunch of individuals running around, and that's how you have a team that is creating additive output. But good leadership is taking all of these things and that's creating a multiplicative output, and that's how companies can be so amazing, even with small teams where they're growing and improving and doing top end amazing stuff. Yep.
Yep. Okay, so that's incredible, and you are kind of skipping to the end because I do ask a surprise question at the end, which we're just gonna get out of the way because you almost pretty much already answered it, which is, what advice would you give to people who are just starting their career in tech today?
Yeah. Okay. Those hard skills of working with whatever technology your particular flavor of tech is, you have to learn those, and you have to have that foundation, because you got to do the job. You have to be able to complete the tasks as they're assigned to you. But that's just the bare minimum, particularly as we're getting into this next level of AI, as everyone's trying to figure out how much can AI actually do. It's only going to get better. We don't know how good it's eventually going to get. But AI still, well, the learning language, LLM, blanking on the LLM,
large language model.
Yeah, something like that. Whatever it is, the LLM style AI that we have, that's not true artificial intelligence. It's just good at stringing words together. This version of LLM is going to have those limitations of all of these soft skills. It can't understand the big picture. It can process a lot of data, but if you're missing data, or you're trying to figure out these goals, you're trying to find out something new, something that's different, something that this is where the human elements are going to come into play. The AI can write some code. I mean, it'll complete the task. It's probably not going to be scalable, at least not, based on, everything can change, big asterisk in what I'm saying there, but AI is going to have those limitations where it's looking into only what is defined right there. Those soft skills of working with your coworkers, communicating with them and collaborating with them so you can all get on the same page, is going to be important. You have to convince your bosses that I've got an idea and it is going to work for these reasons. You have to be able to listen to your bosses, and when they say, this is what's important and we need to achieve these goals, you need to be able to understand what they are. When you're looking laterally across to some of your coworkers and trying to understand what their goals are, you need to be able to work together and both achieve your shared goals, which helps them meet their goals and your goals. You can't live in that bubble. You can't be an island and succeed in the workforce, which is what I was trying to do. I was talking about some of these books. I'll kind of run through some. Peak Performance is good. It talks about business and athletic performance, but as examples. But it's all just like, here's how you go forth and perform your best. Here's how you grow your skills. By Brad Stulberg and Steve Magnus, highly recommend that. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is definitely a good one. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, good one. All of Cal Newport's work is absolutely amazing. I'm holding deep work. Definitely recommend that one. Gosh, I need to organize my books. Point is, like, go forth and read. I can get more up there. Go out and read and learn. It's an amazingly cheap way to cut corners and learn things. I definitely don't think that I would have gotten to where I am in my career without reading a handful of these books. I kept them on some of the big, most influential ones on my desk as a reminder of these important concepts. And just for fun, I've got Creating Web Pages for Dummies. This was the first web-related book that I got. And what was the date? It's you know, it wasn't even teaching divs yet. It was talking about how to build with tables. Oh, come on, don't drag this out. Where's the date?
I'm going to just throw out a guess while you look. 2002.
Okay. It's this. It's also it's it's the 6th edition, and it
Oh
came
boy.
with a CD-ROM of code examples. Oh, come on. Oh, here we go. Oh, 2002. You were right on the money. Yeah.
Oh, yep. I remember exactly where I was the date that you picked up that book. Oh man.
Yeah. So
Good
yeah, I like
times. Good
this
times.
on my desk as well, just because it's a nice, fun conversation piece and reminder of how far things have come. I don't remember. I remember it was some new leader at AMMD, was looking at the books on my desk and saw that and laughed and thought it was quite funny and asked me about it. And yeah, it turned into
Yeah. Okay, so now I mean within the analogy to my podcast format, like we usually do, we've had our dessert before our vegetables. So if you don't mind, if we can rewind to just where you are right now today and what you're working on, be it professionally or personally, but within the sphere of tech, what has you most excited right now?
Well, at this point, as of today, I'm currently sitting on 2 job offers and hoping to get 1 or 2 more by the end of next week. Been navigating the job hunt process and how broken it is, which is a whole topic in of itself. But that's what I'm excited about. On one hand, it's like, yay, I get to have a job again and a paycheck again, and days of the week get to have meaning. Like last week, I thought Wednesday was Friday, and I thought Friday was Thursday, and days of the week haven't had no meaning. So I'm looking forward to getting back into that structure and getting my career back on track. But what I'm really looking forward to is diving into a new brand, and there's always a whole bunch of opportunity for a bunch of quick wins. Usually, you're good at your job, you're going to have a whole array of quick little optimizations and nice things to do, some of which might be new lessons to be learned at a company, particularly if they're growing and small and don't have a big tech team. Then you've got a real easy job. But even if you are going into a tech company where they know, like, oh yeah, these things are important, there's so much detail with building a good performing website, that a lot of these details will kind of slowly erode and devolve over time. If you're in a fast growth phase, it's very easy to just forget about auditing your JavaScript load order, and it just sometimes it's those simple things that can turn into big things. One of my personal pet peeves is buttons and links not having a proper hover state and focus state. For whatever reason, it seems like these days that's missing. It's a pet peeve of mine. Small thing, but it matters. So get to jump in, get to look like a big shot, making a whole bunch of nice quick wins, hopefully, theoretically, but then diving in and learning the brand, getting to learn all sorts of new things every time I've hopped over to a new brand. And particularly if I'm hopping into a new product or new industry, there's all sorts of new things to learn about the product itself, the tech stack, the company goals, the marketing strategy, the internal organization structure, who you're working with, all of those different types of things. You get to just drink through a fire hose and learn a whole bunch of things really fast, really easily. And so it's a very fun process. And as I learn those things, then I'm going to get to build those long-term strategies and start working on the bigger projects, working towards the big wins. That whole joining up at a new brand. There's so many it's just a very fun stage of a career at a company. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. It's going to be fun. Still don't quite know where I'm going to end up. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
I feel like in general, that's a really satisfying place, and I agree with everything you said. And just for fun, I want to nitpick on something very specific that you said that isn't super relevant, but like when it comes down to those hover states and those focus states on buttons, specifically the focus state. As a developer, if you're stepping into an organization where you're working with a designer or a structure of design where somebody has said, I don't like that focus state, it's ugly, can we get rid of that default blue outline? How do you make the case for that being a win to bring it back?
Okay, so you don't like that default hover state. Okay, then let's come up with another one. Let's create a design system. Let's work together within the brand colors. So now we can create a more cohesive brand experience, and that can help us stand out more because we have those details. So we don't have a default hover or a focus state that looks like every other default focus state out there. We want to make something that feels nice and polished and custom in us. So we are helping, in this case with the designers, like, okay, you want to have full brand ownership of the experience. Like, creating a custom focus state is how we do it. And it's an important interactive element, particularly on mobile devices where we've got slower load times but much less patient people. When they tap on an element, we need to provide active feedback that they successfully interacted with it. Hover states can cover that sometimes, but it's better to have an actual dedicated focus state that's going to work well across both desktop and mobile and cover the whole complete experience. We know that most of our traffic comes from mobile devices with a lot of brands these days, unless you're in an edge case situation where you're very, very B2B focused or something like that. Anywhere between 70 and 90% of your traffic is going to be mobile. So we have to get that good experience there. But that whatever 10 to 30% that is desktop, that is going to be also your highest converting. Desktop conversion rates are just generally better than mobile conversion rates. So we want to double down where we're successful and capture that all the better. So that's how I would approach that, is understand their goals, that the design wants to control the full brand experience. So, okay, I get it. Let's do that. And here's how you can control it even more. And then, oh yeah, we'll make more money. And then also, if you want to toss some icing on the cake, then you throw the whole ADA angle, and ensuring accessibility, something everybody can get behind, making sure our digital experiences are accessible to people with any sort of particularly visual impairment, even if it's just something as waning eyesight. Doesn't have to be something extreme, or like color blindness. I don't remember. A lot of people are colorblind, and so that stuff like that is important. And so ensuring enough contrast and a visual change is important for the whole kumbaya angle. But then there's also the avoid the 6, 7, 8 figure lawsuits from ambulance chasers. That's also important.
Yeah. For sure. And I was going to ask, like, what if you came at it from the other side of it? Like, say you come into a team where the lead designer wants no focus state, but the CTO is like, for that 2 to 5% of our users who are working with assistive technology and maybe somewhat visually impaired, shouldn't we make the focus state more close to the default so that it's more easily understood by that population of our users? How would you navigate a situation like that?
Well, that's a solid question. I would want to maybe see. It's going to come down to brand colors and finding a balance, where if we can make something that feels like the default focus state, with that little glow. And if you're lucky and blue is part of your brand, well, just make it your blue instead of the default blue. Or I mean, heck, even if you have, say, bright pink is one of your brand colors, then let's just make it bright pink so it can have a similar feel.
But that might disappear to certain times of color blindness.
Yeah, that is true. So that's going to have to come down to a case-by-case basis and looking at the different colorblind examples. But eventually, it can definitely be a battle, particularly with designers when you've got us coming at it from a very analytical, hard science, hard data, the requirements are Boolean, it's this or it's that, you have it or you don't. And designers often deal with much more shades of gray. Sometimes literally designers love their gray text. And sometimes it's just like, I'm sorry, but we are working in a medium that has limitations. You can't go yell at watercolors and complain about them running. That is just the nature of watercolors. They will do that to some extent. Web design is a creative medium, and you cannot contradict the core nature of this medium in that we can't control everything. We might be dealing with a top of the line, nice iPhone or a super cheap, generic Android phone with a poor screen that somebody with poor eyesight and bright sunlight is trying to look at this device. We don't even have to, like I said, we don't have to go to the full extreme of some full impairment. Let's just talk about just an old guy whose eyesight is waning and can't see contrast as well and is not full-on ADA issues. They just want to be able to consume the brand. And so we have different screen sizes, different screen types, different viewing environments. This isn't an art gallery where we can set the distance that everybody's viewing it and give it all the perfect lighting with the high-end everything. What was it? So the majority of phones are Android devices, and the average cost of an iPhone is like $800 something, and the average cost of a Android is, what was it? It was like $263 or something like that. And so we're talking about averages. Where are the biggest slices of your customers? So we've got the majority of them mobile. The majority of them are probably Android, and the majority of your Android is going to be on a cheap device. Yes, Mr. Designer, that design looks absolutely beautiful on your ginormous high-end iMac best of the best display. That's not how people are mostly going to be viewing your work. So we have to work within the limitations of our medium. At one of my jobs, we straight up got a actual physical cheap Android device to debug stuff, because a browsing experience, even of an emulator on a computer, you've still got your fast processor, your high-end screen, and even emulators don't 100%, it's like 90-something% accurate emulation, but it's still not 100% emulation. And so in this particular instance, I had been banging the drums of, don't bloat the website. We need to slim it down. I have done a lot of optimization over the years. One of the most consistent ways to improve revenue is to remove stuff from your website. make it lighter, make it slimmer, make it simpler, give customers less distractions, and it will convert better. Fast websites convert better. That doesn't mean like, oh yeah, I get that fast websites are better, but we need these 5 more apps. No, fast websites are better, period. We have the limitations of the medium. We must understand them and recognize them. And this physical, cheap Android device, which was $200 something, and so if you're working at a multi-million-dollar company, a $200 something investment is nothing. Pulling up the website on an actual physical Android device, even over Wi-Fi, because this was just a tablet, not even a cellular device. So there's no ongoing subscription, it's just a single purchase. It was over 10 seconds of load time because this website just had so much over engineering and bloat and stuff on it. There was just an excessive amount of resources, and the file size for the whole website was excessively large. And so it looked great on big beautiful desktop monitor, but it took forever to load. And when we looked at conversions rates, computer, even iPhone, it was depending on the segment, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6% conversion rate. Android devices were a few tenths of a percent. So let's do the math. We've got however much our traffic is, 70, 80% of our traffic is mobile, and then give or take 50%, depending on your target audience, it could be, 30, could be 70% of your mobile traffic. So we're talking about, of your total sum of traffic, maybe as much as 50% of your traffic is on a small, cheap, low hardware device. We must optimize for that. We have to optimize for a whole spectrum. This is one of the reasons why website optimization is so difficult and it takes so much effort. You have to care about all of these details and all of these use cases that go beyond just me on my big, beautiful desktop. So having that Android device was able to be like, okay, so this is why. And there was no more argument after that, because you can't argue against it. You show them this is what the bad experience is like, and this is why this stuff is important. And with that, again, getting on the same page. This isn't me just saying, hey, this is important because it's important and we're going to make money. It's like, no, let me demonstrate. Let me show the math of this is the revenue we're leaving on the table. This is where we could be taking the brand and how much money we could be making. If you want to do some basic Excel and some basic projections, that type of stuff really helps convince people, particularly if they're less technical. You don't have to understand. You don't have to tell a non-technical person the definition of an HTTP request and what the average number of HTTP requests and what, how many megabytes of a thing, and how the websites nowadays are bigger than the original Doom back on floppy disks and all. You don't have to educate them on all of the number, all of those things. All you have to do is be like, this is our traffic. This is the subsection of traffic that we're talking about, and this is what their conversion rate is. If we change it to this, it turns into that much revenue. You want to make millions of dollars? This is the problem we need to fix. So now we've just isolated everything, turned it down to a specific problem, and then agreeing on a solution becomes so much easier. And then if we're playing the tug of war of priorities, it's like, okay, we can pursue some, for the sake of argument, I wouldn't call it to a client, but or a boss, a vanity project, something that might make some money or make things look nicer, but isn't going to might drive some revenues. No, here is the big number of revenue. If you want to look into the RICE model, what is it? Reach, income, effort, and I forget what C stands for. It's just a basic math formula that you can turn it into a quantifiable impact of ranking projects, and this is how much money you're going to make. So boom, now it's super easy to determine the order of priorities of projects that we should tackle, and everybody gets on the same page, and we just sprint forward.
Is the C for conversion?
Probably.
Maybe.
Reach, impact, confidence, and effort. Okay.
Oh, well, how
Reach.
do you measure confidence?
So that is where there is going to be a level of gut check, because we can't guarantee the results of an experiment, be it split test or just a one and done project. We can say it's probably going to do this. So what I've done when doing these types of models is I'll do low end and high end, and then state some level of confidence in how much I think it's going to do. So if it's something I've done before, such as sticky add to cart buttons on e-commerce pages, they work with extreme consistency. I'm sure there's some edge case example website where it wouldn't help. Maybe some high-end brand or something that requires maybe a complex page builder. But even then, I've done on bundle products where you just hit build your bundle, and so it just scrolls you to the bundle builder. Like, that stuff helps. So I'm going to have high confidence. But if I'm taking on something that I've never done before, I'm going to have a much lower confidence. And so it could be amazing or it couldn't. So the level of confidence that you have into what your impact is going to be is important. Because you have to balance out that risk and reward. Sometimes you take a big risk and you might get lucky and make the company a whole bunch of money. But sometimes you need just those nice dependables. And when I'm choosing projects, I like to have a balance. I like to have some of the bigger, higher risk, higher reward, more unknown projects that you're working towards. That's how you get the big leaps forward in a company. But you still want to get some of those smaller wins. That way you can just get the consistent stuff. This also then can lean into a whole big topic in of itself of the iterative approach of everything. One and done redesign. Let's use that as an example. Okay, we put in 12 months worth of effort, and we increased our conversion rate by maybe a few tenths of a percent. On a best case scenario, worst case scenario, our conversion rate goes down 75%. So what's the risk and reward? We have to mitigate the risk, and that's where the iterative approach can go. Or if you're doing a re-platform, you don't do a redesign and a re-platform at the same time. You re-platform so you have the proven interactive design, and that way you're mitigating the risk and you're treating it as separate projects. And then you can get those big wins by, instead of redesigning the entire website, we'll redesign the buy box. We'll do some small stuff. We'll do something bigger, such as redesigning the header. You do it in these much more iterative, bite-sized approaches. Dell had a big case study I was at a conference with where they did a big one-and-done redesign. They spent a year doing the perfect redesign. They launched it, and I think their revenue went down to a tenth of what it was. It lasted for a few days, and then they had to revert to the old design, and they lost a year's worth of effort, millions of dollars worth of effort to build the perfect redesign that would have bankrupted the company if they had stuck with it. So why take such a big risk? You want to break it down into bite-sized chunks as much as possible. That way, every time you launch something, this one thing was the impact. Let's go back to the redesign. 80% of the redesign could have been done right, but if the header was done absolutely wrong, and that's what's causing the big impact on the performance, was it the new buy box? Was it the new gallery? Was it the header? Was it the footer? Was it the catalog? You don't know. But if we take each of these elements one at a time, we can measure the impact and have that confidence into what is helping and what is hurting. And now you're learning. As you go, you're getting the conversion rate improvements, the SEO ranking improvements, the more email signups, bit by bit by bit. And we know from compounding interest that the sooner you start getting those increases, the bigger the difference has. So do we want to spend 12 months making the perfect redesign and cross our fingers and hope it's good? Or do we want to launch an update every few weeks for a year and start getting those conversion rate increases on week 2 compared to hoping we get them on week 52?
I want to challenge you on that just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll let me. So let's say that you're an e-commerce brand and you want to re-platform. Let's say you're on X commerce, but Commerce A seems to have all the bells and whistles and everything you need, everything you've been missing, everything Commerce X has been lacking in. But that platform has an entirely different front end language. There's no way to re-platform without a complete redesign. So let's say,
Sorry, I'm interrupting. Go finish your thought.
No, okay, no. I mean, if you think that there's a way, then I'm excited to hear it. But like, you have to spend 6 to 12 months rebuilding that thing and then launching it and then seeing how it does all at once. And let's just say that, for example, your header is slightly different than your header was on a Commerce X can't do it like that. So it's different. So you went for like a dumbed down approach, or a little bit, maybe, you sacrificed a little bit of the architecture of your hierarchy of pages and categories and products, because your new platform doesn't support how you used to do it.
Okay, so let's go back to this rice calculator and use it as a point, because there are times where you have to do big projects and you have to take those risks. So we've got reach. Well, the reach is going to be 100% of your traffic. That's a big deal. Impact, that is going to be, impact and confidence are going to be the big components with this example. How much of an impact is it going to actually have? Are you going to get one feature that's kind of nice, that's going to be mostly probably helpful? It's not going to be worth it. Or do you have a or multiple big business level strategies that you want to do? Like, you want to launch a subscription platform, and for whatever reason, the current shop you're on cannot handle something as simple as subscriptions. Well, subscriptions are going to have a ludicrous impact. So when we're doing this basic math of this math multiplier, okay, confidence. Yep, I have extreme confidence that subscriptions is going to help my consumable brand bring in more revenue. Effort. Okay, well, the effort is going to be high, but the impact and the confidence and the reach, those are massive multipliers in this instance. So we have to re-platform. That is absolutely a time, where things happen. So now we are going to be trying to minimize the risk. The back end is going to change. The platform is going to change. Some of that stuff is going to, it's going to require a bunch of effort over the course of 6, 12, 18 months to do this. Do we want to redo absolutely everything, or do we want to redo only what we have to do? HTML, CSS, and client-side JavaScript are universal. They're controlled by the browser, not by your commerce platform. So rebuild what's behind the scenes that you have to rebuild, be it a full platform redesign, or say a Shopify theme update, because you have to go from Shopify themes 1.0 to Shopify themes 2.0, or whatever this tech is, be it a full big tech replatform or a subcomponent of your tech replatform. You have to minimize that risk and only change what you have to. The bigger the project, the more likely this is, the more important this is going to be. So we want to make sure the design stays effectively exactly the same. If you have a good team that built a good website, HTML and CSS are just HTML and CSS. So all you have to do is rework it into the new theme. Not everyone.
Can we talk about Shopify for just a second?
Bring it on.
Can we talk about their checkout extensibility? Can we talk about the deprecation of checkout.liquid? Can we talk about how your CSS and your JavaScript can get the fuck right out because we're doing it in a brand new way now?
Yep. So in this case, so with the previous case, you're only changing as much as you can. So you want the customer experience to stay the same. Okay, you're adding a subscription buy box. Okay, the site loads faster. You upgrade from, jQuery to vanilla JavaScript, some behind the scenes that impacts customers because we made that RICE calculation and determined that it was going to have a positive impact, and we were confident about it. We want to control the variables and only change as few things one at a time as possible. But in some cases, you have to take the 6 months to build that. But we're only changing that. When we are talking about these instances, like with Shopify, and they seem to be doing this stuff at an increasing rate lately, we don't have control over it. We are not making the choice of, I want to do this. This is a platform dictating to us, you must do it this way. So we can't run a RICE calculation about it because we are losing that control. Eventually, you might have to have the conversation of, do we want to trust a brand that it keeps on changing things on us and telling us how to run things and undermining some of our control? Shopify does a lot of things really, really well, but there are some things that they just hard stop, don't let you have control over, because they are more concerned about the Shopify experience as opposed to brand number 4,532,000. So that is a conversation that would need to be had. Do we trust the stability of this platform, which has to happen no matter what? I will argue that the track record of Shopify is getting a little dicey. Shopify checkout extensibility itself, when it launched, it was not GDPR compliant. There was no way to implement GDPR compliance with this brand new whiz-bang thing that Shopify was forcing on all of us.
So they made their own brand new API that you have to figure out.
So I might be able to claim at least partial credit for this, because I was talking with my Shopify rep, and they were telling us that, hey, you need to upgrade and all of this stuff. I'm like, well, we're using still Shopify scripts to do our discounting and all of these things. And at that point, we had some rebuy customizations that was reliant on. It's like, we have these core functionalities that are making us a lot of money. We can't migrate it until we meet these things. So we will get to it, but we can't do it based on current Shopify tech and current Shopify app integrations and whatnot. Those things went away one by one, but GDPR compliance was one that was, it took, I think it was 2 months of back and forth of me trying to tell them this is important. And I was being like, hey, we can't put JavaScript on our checkout page. You guys want to sell us more apps, and so you're taking away the ability for us to put JavaScript on that page because now you can't sell us an app. You are taking away our customization options so we can just click a button and and pay for an app. For example, right now we have a nice little trust badge that is an image that's just sitting right there. I just type out image src, boom, that's all it takes. I have to buy a $5 a month subscription now. Can you understand why I'm not particularly thrilled about these changes? Sure, those click and drags are better for the local shops, but we're a multi-million-dollar shop with a full dev team, and we are losing out on this control. We can't put JavaScript on a page. Not only do we can't put JavaScript on a page, we can't put it wherever we want. This GDPR compliance stuff has to load before all other JavaScript before. So I'm doing the full tech breakdown with this person, explaining point by point by point, writing it all out, spelling it out, linking to documentation, all of this stuff. It took months of back and forth. At one point, they're just like, oh no, you don't need it on that page. You can have it elsewhere. No, if we don't have it on that one page, we are now tracking customers without their violation. Like all of these things. It took me months. At one point, their argument was like, oh, Shopify wouldn't forget about this. Well, obviously they did. It was months later that finally they said, we need, you're right, this can't, well, actually, they never said you're right. They never said this can't be done. They just said, we'll have to get back to you with some API updates. And then several months later, the API updates happened. So I will say that I had some level of influence to finally convince Shopify that they dropped a very big ball. Maybe I wasn't the only one, probably wasn't, but yes. So you have to ask yourself, do you trust your partners? This applies to Shopify. This applies to your coworker on the desk next to you. Do you trust their ability to look out for your best interests, the brand's best interests, and do what their realm of responsibility is? I have been questioning Shopify's capabilities in those areas a lot. They do a lot of things well. They are iterating and improving things. In some cases, their improvements are maybe lateral moves, maybe slightly better, but now I need to take 3 months of work to re-architecture stuff and build stuff out and buy new apps and increase my expenses. And the Shopify tech stack is getting chaotic. It's even more so if you want to do something slightly beyond a standard basic e-commerce website. So that is definitely a conversation that I've been having with Shopify reps and with other professionals. And I don't think I'm the only one who's starting to have these questions and opinions. And Shopify has been losing a lot of their big enterprise brands. They tried to do their headless stuff to plug some of those gaps, but their initial release of Shopify headless was shaky and problematic and rocky at best. I've heard it's gotten better, but there's lots of industry upheaval stuff going on right now. With AI changes, tech stack changes, brands growing potentially too big for their britches and trying to be too many things for too many people. So analyze your partners, figure out what is their track record. Are they helping you meet your needs? Figure it out and, maybe run a rice calculation.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you're being very diplomatic and very fair. For me personally, if it's up to me, I'm not going to use them again in the next 5 to 10 years. Because right now, what they're doing in order to ensure quality assurance, they're making a walled garden around their properties. They came out with their headless, their hydrogen oxygen model because other people, like, it was great when they made their GraphQL API and you could make a headless storefront. But now they're making it so you can only do that well and with any sense of stability on their platform with their hosting. And
yep,
it's okay. It's okay, but it's not. I don't know. I don't want to build another shop on them. Not now. Not anytime soon.
Yeah. It would be hard to justify the expense of a full migration to a different e-commerce platform if I was building from the ground up. I don't think I would use Shopify, unless it's, my wife wants to spin up a store to sell some whiz-bang things that she's making, and she just needs to click buttons. If you're building, something small, simple, yeah, it still works well for that.
I'd almost pick WooCommerce.
With some of the managed WooCommerce platform stuff out there potentially, but yeah, Shopify is just getting less stable. They've gotten to the point in scale where they are bullying their customers, their partners, their app partners, their agency partners, all of them, they're being bullied into only doing things how Shopify wants, when and where Shopify wants. It's getting harder to use third-party services outside of the Shopify App Store because Shopify doesn't make money off of that stuff. And yeah, I am definitely losing trust in Shopify's business model because they are putting themselves first and all of their stores second. And of the stores that they are prioritizing the non-massive full dev team type stores where all you have to do is click a bunch of buttons, because the more buttons you click, that means the more reliant you are on Shopify apps. Now, even independent of Shopify, now your business is being beholden to a dozen different companies across different apps that may or may not meet your needs in the future, that may collapse. Like, the number of brands that you are becoming reliant on, the number of people is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you haven't added a single person to your payroll, and you have control over effectively none of that. It is getting a much less stable business model, and Shopify's choice to yank the rug out of their merchant, out from underneath their merchants time and time and time again, is quickly eroding my trust in them.
Well, so that's a very, very specific little corner of what's going on right now. So just for the last touchstone of our conversation today, if we want to zoom out into either the greater ecosphere of e-commerce or tech in general, and how are you feeling about the current state of things?
It's definitely a bit chaotic. I mean, if you go even far enough out to the whole economy and job world in of itself, with remote being pushed back into hybrid, inflation going crazy, that there is just chaos down from the number of JavaScript libraries that we're having to deal with, up to the entire, and AI and Shopify and coworkers and layoffs and all. Chaos is the state of everything right now. The internet is no stranger to this. I always say that I feel like I'm having to relearn 50% of my job every 2 to 4 years. It might be more like 60 to 70% of my job every 1 to 2 years at this point. It's pretty crazy. So building a diverse skill set is important, so you can adapt to whatever's going on. You have to be able to learn quickly. AI is going to be taking big chunks out of more in basic level of effort. We're still figuring it out and figuring out its limitations. The error rate is definitely concerning for AI. AI has no way of currently being like reprimanded for its error rate, and can't really grow and change. So if I have a coworker sitting right next to me and he makes a mistake, we can have a conversation, figure out what went wrong, learn, and move on. All the AI can do is just give more data put into it, and hopefully it interprets that data correctly. So, I mean, we were talking about losing control. Like, we've got a whole nother level of control that we're throwing out to the machines. And as we've seen from various controversies, these machines are even being manipulated based on the goals and priorities of certain. It's just chaos. We have to be able to adapt, be aware of what's going on, and adapt and experiment. It's that iterative approach that I was talking about earlier. We need to just try a whole bunch of different things, make calculated pro con, balance the risk and reward, so you're not surprised. There's nothing wrong with failure. You can't not fail. Kobe Bryant, he's took more shots than any other basketball player in NBA history, and it was because of the level of effort, both in practice and in games like that. He worked harder and he made more attempts. He failed a lot, but he used that to learn. So experiment, try things out. In some cases, if you can keep it isolated enough, take some big risks. But if it's bigger stuff, try and minimize those risks. Just make an intelligent choice of the scope of what's going on. How much can we risk? Don't risk more than you can afford to lose. But if you're never going to risk anything, you're never going to get anywhere. You have to find that middle ground, and that's just the name of the game right now. There's just so much change in everything. You have to find a way to keep up.
So you'd say find your personal risk tolerance and make sure that's greater than 0.
Yep. And also figure out where your employer's risk tolerances are at, because if you're mismatched between your personal risk tolerance and your company's risk tolerance, then that can change things. Maybe consider taking up a hobby where, if you want to be crazy risk, pick up hell divers where it's just nothing but risk versus reward, or whatever it is. Find some hobby. Woodworking, I don't know, whatever. Find something that interests you. Now you have complete control over your iteration and your experimentation. That's what I do, so I'm able to really scratch that itch of pushing and learning and growing. I can go at my own pace with my own schedule. That kind of helps keep that part of me mostly satisfied. That allows my professional life to tailor myself to my current boss, the current employment. Like maybe the companies will go through phases of more and less risk adverse. Economy takes a big swing, whatever it is. You have to find those balances, and maybe try and find 2 different balances. That way you're not mismatched and putting your career at risk.
I think that's super fair. I mean, to some extent, that's what I'm doing with this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be the 3rd episode, and the 1st episode is going to launch on Monday.
Cool.
So 3 weeks from now, people will see this. And by that time, I think the production quality, I expect to improve a lot. And, we got to get it out there, got to see what the viewership is. But I am so honored and privileged that you wanted to do this with me. I'm so happy to have you as a guest here.
Absolutely. This has been a fun chat. I always love talking shop, and we spent 2.5 years working together and had who knows how many conversations. I mean, we get the cluster of us working together. I still remember those 4 o'clock chats. There's something magical about 4 o'clock where we all kind of petered out, and then we started solving business problems, technical problems, societal problems, anything and everything. And that was a great bonding time and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember it fondly as well. And I hope that you'll be willing to come on again in the future.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for making the time, and I will let you get on into your day. This has been a great chat.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.